What if I revealed that something sinister stirred beneath the frozen depths? A presence so old, so dreadful, that even the fearless Vikings, known for their unyielding courage and epic tales of valor, spoke of it only in hushed tones during the bleakest hours. Imagine yourself enveloped by an unending icy stillness, a chill so piercing it seeps into your marrow, with winds whispering more than just frost. Welcome to Legends Unearthed, where ancient myths, buried terrors, and otherworldly battles spring to life. If you're captivated by the hidden corners of folklore, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to stay updated with every epic tale. Music. The land was locked in winter's merciless hold, shrouded under a sky heavy with endless twilight. In the far northern wilds, a small village fought to survive, hemmed in by forests where shadows seemed to slither closer each day. The once proud warriors who dwelled there now gathered around fading embers, their breath clouding in the frigid air, their spirits dimming with the vanishing light. Beyond their walls stretched a frozen wasteland, its quiet broken only by the eerie wail of wolves and the relentless splintering of ice. As storms howled, hunger bit harder than any predator. Children wept for food. Elders murmured of calamity. At the center of this anguish stood a leader, his hands gnarled like ancient roots, his gaze shadowed by dread and defeat. The marks on his body spoke of battles survived, but none matched the unseen scars of watching his people fade. He refused to surrender, driven by tales of lost relics and forgotten deities sealed in the far north. Fueled by this faint hope and the fierce resolve of a trapped beast, he rallied his warriors for one last venture. If any salvation exists in this world, it waits beyond the frost, he proclaimed, his voice cutting through the tempest, echoing the ancient words of their chronicles. Better to perish in pursuit than to waste away in despair. Among those who joined was a Shieldmaiden, bold in heart and keen in mind. Her presence was a lone flame in the darkness. Though born of noble blood, her gifts went beyond blade and shield. In secret, she etched runes, chanting the old language of her ancestors, ever cautious of watchful eyes. Even the leader himself was unaware of the true extent of her wisdom or the price of wielding such power. To her, the North was more than a landscape, it was a living force, woven with mysteries and omens etched in frost and rock. They trekked through the blinding snow, guided by half-forgotten legends and the promise of a deity entombed in the farthest reaches. With each step, the cold grew more savage, draining strength and clouding thoughts. Night after night, they forged ahead, haunted by the fear that each march might be their final one. Ravens circled overhead, silent and watchful, and the air felt thick with unspoken menace. The warriors muttered of omens, recalling the old proverb, "Where ravens feast, the dead walk." At last, they stumbled upon a gash in the glacier, a maw opened by the storm, leading deep into the earth's frozen heart. There, beneath flickering torches, they found a cavern carved with runes far older than the gods they prayed to. The walls were slick with frost, etched with warnings in a language that twisted the tongue. At the center, a monstrous shape lay imprisoned in black ice, wings outstretched, claws curled, its face a vision from nightmares, both man and beast, and something more. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet hunger and ambition held them fast. It was the Shieldmaiden who first sensed the truth, her breath catching as ancient power throbbed in the air. "We should leave this place," she whispered, voice trembling, not from cold, but from the weight of destiny. But her warnings went unheeded. The chieftain, blinded by desperation, scoffed at superstition. The others laughed uneasily, masking their dread with bravado. If the gods had left a prize buried here, it would be theirs to claim or die trying. Night fell heavy as stone, pressing upon the village with suffocating dread. Even the wind seemed to hush, as if the land itself were holding its breath. The men returned home, dreams twisted by visions of fortune and glory. Yet the ice in the cavern began to crack. Each fissure was a heartbeat, each groan an omen. Something ancient stirred in the darkness, hungry for more than blood. No one could foresee the true cost of their arrogance, nor the horror that would soon be unleashed upon the world. The line between man and monster, between myth and reality, was about to be shattered. As the old sagas warn, not all that sleeps beneath the earth is meant to be awakened. But before the first screams shattered the night, before blood froze on the snow, a single question echoed through the silence. Did we disturb a god, or something far worse? And as the last embers faded, the Shieldmaiden's words lingered, a promise and a warning intertwined. Beware the ice that does not melt, for within it sleeps the doom of us all. The dead do not rest easy beneath the northern stars. Those who dare to wake what should remain forgotten will find no mercy, neither from gods nor monsters. The wind outside was relentless, howling across the icy wastes and rattling the walls of the longhouse. But within, the fire flickered low. Warriors sat shoulder to shoulder, their faces drawn with exhaustion and silent worry. The prize they discovered in the glacier, a being frozen in a tomb of black ice, was the only thing they could talk about. Some spoke with excitement, others with nervous laughter, but all felt the weight of something unnatural pressing on their hearts. There was no feasting tonight, only the slow chewing of dry bread and the sound of the storm battering at the world beyond the wooden walls. The chieftain, lost in his thoughts, barely noticed his daughter, who traced trembling runes on the inside of her palm. The ancient power she'd felt in the glacier still pulsed at the edge of her senses, cold as the grave. As darkness deepened, an unspoken tension gripped the village. It was a night without end, the kind that erases time and turns hours into eternities. The elders muttered of old omens, remembering the days when spirits were said to walk freely during storms like this. The chieftain tried to quiet the growing fear, reminding the others of their purpose. They had risked everything to seek hope in the north, to bring back glory and wealth. Yet, as each candle guttered out, the night seemed to grow heavier. Even the bravest felt watched, as if the walls themselves had grown eyes, waiting for something to shatter the silence. Suddenly, a sound like the crack of thunder split the night. The village dogs howled in terror. Men rushed to the door, hearts hammering. The glacier, hidden in the far distance, now glowed with an unnatural blue light that shimmered against the darkness. A rumble echoed across the snow, making the earth tremble beneath their feet. The Shieldmaiden pressed her fingers to the window, unable to look away from the dreadful glow. She recognized what others did not. The runes she'd read had warned of this very moment, a prison weakening, a darkness waking. Still, when the chieftain ordered the bravest to follow, she found herself stepping out into the cold, unable to abandon her people to the curse she had sensed. The party moved quickly, torches blazing as they cut through the blizzard. Each step toward the glacier felt like walking into a nightmare. Their breath froze on their beards and cloaks, turning them into walking statues. The mountain surface was riddled with cracks, and from its heart came a groan so deep it seemed to call forth every buried fear. They reached the cavern and found the ice now splintered, the ancient carvings glowing faintly, as if reacting to a presence no one wanted to name. The chieftain's voice, usually so steady, shook as he commanded them forward. Their torches illuminated the face in the ice, eyes now open, flickering with unnatural hunger. Wings, once dormant, twitched as the being began to stir. It was a moment burned forever into their memories. The Shieldmaiden whispered a prayer to the old gods, her voice trembling with dread. The monster, its pale blue skin shining in the torchlight, seemed to drink in the warmth, growing stronger with every second. One of the warriors, reckless and proud, struck the ice with his axe, shattering the fragile barrier. In an instant, darkness surged out. The creature lunged forward with impossible speed, claws flashing. The first screams rang out, echoing through the frozen night. Those who survived remembered little of what followed, only blood on the snow, the sound of wings beating like thunder, and a cold so deep it burned. By dawn, the horror was known to all. The chieftain's hand was wounded, and the bravest among them lay dead or vanished, their bodies never found. Panic spread through the village. Some swore they saw shadows moving in the woods. Others claimed to hear voices whispering in forgotten tongues. The Shieldmaiden felt the taint of magic crawling through the air, her runes burning against her skin. In the morning light, the tracks of the beast were plain to see, deep, inhuman prints leading toward the dark forest, accompanied by trails of blood. The elders gathered in council, desperate for wisdom. They recalled old tales of a demon lord, a creature that drank souls as easily as blood, banished by shamans in an age before Odin. The truth was clear, this was no god, but a curse from the world's first darkness. In the following nights, terror gripped every heart. The wind carried strange howls. Children were kept inside, and grown men slept with weapons at their sides. The Shieldmaiden pored over ancient texts, searching for a way to end the nightmare. She remembered the carvings, sunlight, fire, and a ritual older than any prayer. The chieftain, nursing his wounds, gathered what warriors remained. He spoke with grim resolve, invoking the words of the poetic Edda, "Bravery is the shield against the night, but only wisdom can drive out the darkness." Together, they began to plan a stand against the creature, knowing that their enemy was not mortal and that the price of failure was extinction. Each day, the beast grew bolder. Some villagers vanished without a trace. Others returned as thralls, eyes empty, skin cold as the grave. A plague of fear swept through the camp, turning neighbor against neighbor. It was clear that the demon, known in fragments of ancient legend as the Frostblood, fed on more than flesh. It sowed dread, breaking spirits as easily as it shattered bones. The Shieldmaiden, driven by desperation and the memory of her family's honor, found new strength in her hidden art. She spoke softly to the runes, praying for guidance, while the chieftain stoked what courage remained in his men. One night, the Frostblood appeared at the village's edge, framed by swirling snow. Its wings unfurled, casting a shadow that stretched over the longhouse. It gazed upon the mortals with cold disdain, as if studying the strength of their souls before feasting. The chieftain, battered but unbowed, challenged the demon with axe in hand. The Shieldmaiden summoned the courage to stand at his side, whispering ancient words that crackled with power. The villagers looked on in horror and awe, realizing at last that this battle would be their fate, a test not just of weapons, but of everything that made them human. That night, firelight danced across desperate faces. The warriors readied their arms, and the Shieldmaiden traced new runes, calling on spirits older than memory. The chieftain spoke of legacy, of fighting so their names would not be forgotten, even if their bones were lost to the ice. It was a moment that would shape legends, the old world fading, the line between man and monster blurring. All who survived knew they had crossed into a story from which there was no return. In the words of the sagas, when shadows lengthen and the dead walk, only the bold and the wise shall see another dawn. But as the storm howled outside, one line from the ancient runes kept returning to the Shieldmaiden's mind. A promise of doom and revelation: he who breaks the ancient seal must answer to the first darkness. For nothing once awoken will sleep again. Music. The days that followed the awakening of the ancient horror were marked by an unnatural cold that crept into every corner of the village. The snow that once blanketed the earth with a silent peace now pressed down like a shroud. The sun, weak and distant, barely pierced the clouds, as if even it was afraid to look upon the curse that had been unleashed. The villagers moved like ghosts among the drifts, their eyes hollow, voices hushed. No laughter echoed through the longhouse. No song rose to break the gloom. Instead, there was a heavy sense of waiting, a dread that tightened with each sunset, as if everyone knew that something vital had been broken and could never be mended. On the third night after the release, an icy mist drifted in from the north, curling through the village like a living thing. With it came the first sign of true calamity. A warrior, returned from the forest with frostbitten hands, stumbled into the firelight, his face as pale as the moon. His speech was broken, lips blue, veins dark beneath the skin. As he fell to his knees, gasping for breath, the Shieldmaiden saw in his eyes a reflection of something terrible, an emptiness that went beyond suffering. He collapsed, convulsing, and when the villagers tried to aid him, they recoiled in horror. His flesh was as cold as the ice that birthed the monster, and when his eyes snapped open, they glowed with an unholy light. Those nearby barely escaped with their lives as the man, no longer himself, lashed out with unnatural strength and speed. From that night on, the curse spread with a silent, relentless hunger. The afflicted wandered the village, driven by a need they could not name, drawn to warmth and blood. Some vanished into the snow, their tracks leading only to the dark line of the woods. Others remained, changing slowly, their bodies stiffening, skin paling, until they became little more than husks. The Shieldmaiden, tormented by guilt and the memory of ancient warnings, worked night and day to find a way to stop the sickness. She pored over every rune and carving, every tale passed down by her foremothers. What she found chilled her soul. The Frostblood's power was not only in the body, but in the mind. Its presence corrupted the will, sowing confusion and suspicion among those it did not yet consume. Panic soon threatened to tear the village apart. Old friends accused one another of being tainted, and no one trusted the silence outside their doors. The chieftain, though wounded, kept his grip on command with iron determination. He sent patrols to guard the outskirts, forbade anyone from walking alone, and gathered the people nightly to share what little food remained. Still, the numbers dwindled, and fear began to erode even the strongest bonds. There were whispers that the gods had turned their faces away from them. Some spoke of leaving, fleeing south, abandoning the land to its curse. But the elders remembered what the sagas warned: those who run from the darkness find it waiting at the next threshold. Despair settled in deeper as the attacks grew bolder. One night, the beast itself descended upon the outer houses, wings stretched across the moon, claws tearing through wood and flesh alike. The survivors described a blur of shadow and frost, a hunger so profound that it seemed to drain all heat and hope from the world around it. The chieftain's resolve hardened. He swore before the gathered warriors that he would see the demon destroyed or die in the attempt. He invoked the words of the old wisdom: a man's courage is not measured by his victories, but by the terrors he dares to face. The Shieldmaiden pressed deeper into her studies, drawing on forbidden memories and the runes etched into her mind. She learned that the Frostblood could not be slain by steel alone. Fire, sunlight, and ritual, these were the keys repeated in every legend, hidden in riddles and half-remembered verses. She began to gather what little she could, tar from the ships, sunstones said to trap the light, ancient herbs dried in the rafters. Secretly, she traced protective circles around the doors, murmuring invocations that felt as old as the wind itself. But with every passing night, the shadow lengthened. More villagers fell ill, slipping quietly into death or something worse. The chieftain summoned the surviving warriors and spoke to them with a fire that belied his wounds. He reminded them of their ancestors, of those who had fought giants and trolls, who had crossed stormy seas with nothing but faith in their own strength. He commanded that they would not yield, even if all hope seemed lost. The Shieldmaiden, standing at his side, revealed the knowledge she had uncovered. Together, they devised a desperate plan, a stand at the fjord, where fire could be turned against the darkness, and the power of the sun, however faint, might be summoned at dawn. As the preparations began, the villagers moved like sleepwalkers, their faces set in grim masks. Yet a spark of determination lit in their eyes, a refusal to be swept away by fear. They gathered pitch and torches, sharpened blades, and practiced the rituals as best they could remember. The Shieldmaiden carried the burden of her secret knowledge, feeling the weight of every lost life. In her dreams, the runes blazed with warnings, and she heard the ancient words whispered over and over, "If you wake sleep, you must pay the price." That final night before the confrontation, the village was silent but for the sound of the wind. Families huddled together, clutching tokens of luck, praying to gods, both new and old. The Shieldmaiden stood alone at the edge of the frozen fjord, staring out into the darkness where the monster waited. In her heart, she knew that the coming battle would mark the end of their world. Whether by victory or annihilation, nothing would ever be the same. The chieftain joined her, his voice low and steady. He spoke of legacy, of the line that must not be broken. The Shieldmaiden, drawing strength from the ancestors who watched unseen, promised that she would not falter. The words of the Saga rang between them, a vow against oblivion. In the darkest hour, the blood of the brave will kindle a fire to shame the sun. But as the stars vanished behind gathering clouds, and the cold deepened into something almost sentient, an ancient fear stirred in every heart. For beyond the circle of torchlight, something moved, something old, hungry, and utterly merciless. He who brings the plague from the ice, let him be judged by the first fire. For in the land where day does not break, the night remembers its own. Beneath the endless, brooding sky, the fjord was transformed.